Welcome to the MFR Coaches podcast, where we talk about how you can create a six-figure MFR practice. I'm your host, Heather Hommel. Not only have I been practicing MFR for 11 years, I'm also a life and business coach, especially for MFR therapists. My goal is for you to understand how to get fully booked, how to talk to your clients, and how to make sure they understand what's possible for them with MFR treatment. I'm here to help you stop under-earning, overworking, and burning out. I'll lend support so you can create the MFR practice you've always wanted. Learn how you can do it too, even if you live in a tiny town, and even if you're just starting out, and even if you've ran your practice for years. Let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the MFR Coaches podcast. I'm joined today by my co-coach, Meg Gluckman. Meg is here to kind of do a year in review for 2024. You guys are going to be listening to this in 2025, but it's going to be great. Meg, welcome back to the program. Happy you're here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be back. I love coming on.
Yeah, I love having you here. She's going to kind of put me in the hot seat to talk about my business, which I think anytime we can be transparent and share some of the struggles I go through and the wins that I have, I think it helps normalize like failures and momentum and all of those things. So I'm glad you're here. I'm ready to be uncomfortable. So let's do it.
Awesome. I love that. And part of the reason this came to mind for me as a cool thing to do is because we do so much evaluation within the Foundations program. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the questions I want to ask you are questions that we ask everybody in the program to reflect on. We regularly do monthly evaluations where we put a post in the Facebook group and folks reflect on what went well during the month, what didn't go well, what they want to do differently next month, what their most helpful thoughts were, what their most helpful feelings were, what they were most proud of. And so folks are doing that on a monthly basis, and then we always encourage on an annual basis as well. So why not bring those questions to you here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I haven't done any of these, like, I don't know what she's going to ask me, and I haven't like written out a ton of evaluations. So this is going to be on the fly, and I'm going to do my best.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. So why don't you first give us a little grounding in where were you? Where was your business at the start of 2024?
Okay. At the start of 2024, I was going through a rebrand. So I had just hired a company to like create a brand for me and kind of create a direction for my business, like with this brand. And I was very unclear about what my brand necessarily stood for. Like they asked me such specific questions, like, what does your brand stand for? Like, what is the feeling people should get? Like all of these things, what are the colors? All of these things. And I was like, I have literally no idea. And it kind of spun me out right away at the beginning of the year because I felt almost like not disconnected, but it was like I made those questions so hard to answer simply because I've almost thought about it too hard. Luckily, this company does this all of the time, and they walked me through it. And now I have this beautiful brand with colors and themes and reasons. And I was just actually reading my brand guide the other day, and a lot of it, I'm just going to open it up here to kind of read some of the background of the brand, which I think I was reading it. I was like, yeah, that is me. And it's more than just like the logo and the color and all of those things. It goes way deeper in that. So it says how your persona shows up on brand. It says Heather Hommel's ideal client avatar represents a driven, compassionate myofascial release therapist who brings depth of care and a desire for growth to their practice. They are typically female between 30 and 70 years old and possess a strong sense of purpose in their healing work. These therapists are often at a pivotal point, recognizing the need to shift from a purely service-based mindset to one that also embraces the business of healing. They may feel overextended and undervalued, but are eager to learn how to balance their passion for MFR with a profitable business model. They're drawn to Heather's wisdom, her straightforward approach, and her own successful journey within the MFR community. They seek her guidance to navigate the business landscape confidently, aiming to make their therapy practice not only a source of personal fulfillment, but also financial stability and recognition in the broader wellness industry. And I'm like,
Oh, so good.
so I love that that's like what they captured from what I said.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So a couple things pop up when you describe that. The first is how it's so common for all of us in growing our businesses to have different points where we get stuck on decisions. We see a lot of folks at the very beginning when they're first starting their business, they can stall out for weeks or months choosing a logo or
Yeah.
choosing the name of their business.
Yeah.
And I just think back to when you started the MFR coach back in like 2020 and how different it is now, how many different reincarnations it has gone through, like the evolution it has gone through. And I think it's so helpful to recognize what you decide once doesn't have to be what you stick with, right? It can all
Absolutely.
evolve. Even the name of businesses can evolve. We have folks who change the name of their business because it doesn't fit what they're doing, it doesn't fit who they want to serve anymore. And it's not rocket science, it's not impossible to do. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love I love you sharing that about you spinning out temporarily about
Oh,
making these
yeah.
decisions.
Well, and I felt like very insecure during the process. Like I felt like I was too old to be doing this. Like people were going to think it was weird. I had all the thoughts about it. Cause I had to change how I would dress. Not really, I didn't want to like change how I would dress, but I was wearing clothes that I would normally wear. Like I made sure it was stuff that I would wear. Now I'm wearing like a formal dress in some of the pictures and I would wear that dress again. Honest, I would wear all of this stuff again. But I think like my thoughts, I had to up level my thoughts about myself and about it being okay to be luxurious, to be fancy, to be a little bit bougie, and to just to allow that part of me to be okay. I didn't need to hide anything about
Hmm.
myself, and I could still be related, even if I was elevating the look of the brand. And there's
Yeah.
still nothing wrong with all of the brand decisions I made leading up to that. Like back in the day, if you scroll way back, there's a lot of pastel pink. There's a lot of pink happening. There's a lot of pink. Okay. And I don't even like that color, but I was trying to like relay that I work with women. I don't know, whatever. It's so funny. And then I had, my gold double H's, which I love the gold double H's. And that was like the first time I hired someone from Fiverr to make a brand mark
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it's just not a problem because sometimes we have to make decisions and like sit with them, live with them for a while, like work
yeah.
through, like work our business with them to figure out, oh, wait, this doesn't fit totally. And I want this other thing. And it
Yeah.
can be playful, right? Like it
Yeah.
can be like, oh, I'm going to experiment. I'm going to try this on for a little while. I love
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So tell us about what your goals were for 2024.
So when I set out into the landscape of 2024, I was in the like height of having a herniated disc and not knowing it and like just being in 10 out of 10 pain. Like I remember flying to my photo shoot for that branding and like laying in the Delta Lounge because my flight was delayed by 5 hours, just laying there waiting for the flight to go and not even knowing if I would physically be able to do the photo shoot the next day because I was going to Atlanta to do that. And just being like, I'm wild, but this is just what I'm doing. I can do this and have a herniated disc. It's fine. So I was in so much pain at the beginning of the year. I don't know that I set too many goals like I don't know that I said a lot out loud because I was so afraid of like what was going to go on and I was so distracted by the pain I was in. One of my goals though for sure was to at least recreate like the same amount of revenue that I did in 2023. So 2023 I had a $420,000 year of sales and that was cash collected. And I ran payment plans a little bit differently. Everything was pay in full. So, like, if I sold it, I was paid right away. So, 2024 saw us bring in payment plans. I wanted to make sure that the cost of the program was not going to be a barrier to people joining. And we may even like explore that in 2025 for even more options for that. But, so my goal was to at least repeat the same amount of revenue. And as the year progressed, right, I ended up having to get surgery. I ended up having to take unplanned time off and recovery. I ended up going through kind of a severe bout of depression related to just the surgical, like the anesthesia. I was just not prepared for any of that. And around that time, I was like, well, I don't know if I'll repeat, I don't know. And I also had this other goal of like hitting $1 million because this was my fourth year in business and I wanted to hit it before I was 45. I did that. I did hit that overall running total. And now that we're at the end of the year, I can say that I did repeat last year in sales. So that's good because there was most of the year I was about $150,000 off of the year before. And I was like, well, like a lot has happened. It's fine. Hey, MFR therapists, have you protected your practice yet? Running an MFR business isn't just about helping your clients to heal. It's about protecting your business too. That's why I created the MFR Coach's Legal Toolbox, a complete set of lawyer-drafted, customizable templates to make sure your practice and website are legally protected and fully compliant. Here's the deal. We've got two essential bundles. The website bundle for just $199. It includes your MFR website's terms and conditions, privacy policy, and disclaimer, and the policies and contracts bundle for $499. With all the must-have forms like your client intake, welcome letter, HIPAA disclosures, and special consent forms. Want the best deal? Grab both bundles and save $100. You get instant access and every template is fully editable in Google Docs or Word. No more guessing if your paperwork holds up. I've got you covered. Ready to protect your practice? Head to the link in the show notes and grab your legal toolbox today. Because when your business is protected, you can focus on what matters most, helping your clients to heal. For a limited time only, when you enter the code podcast25 at checkout, you'll save an additional 25%. Enjoy. And I also think it's good to point out that business isn't linear, no matter how big your business is going and no matter how good of a year you had the year before, you could have less revenue, less income, and it's not necessarily a measurement of like a problem in your business. So I did a lot of coaching with my own brain around the time that I crossed the $1 million mark. It was like, yep, I've crossed the $1 million mark. And then a lot of like disbelief and like having to check my Stripe account and like do math. And I think I would like text you numbers. I'd be like, are you sure this counts? I don't know. Now I said it out loud. I feel like I lied. And it's like, yes, I've crossed that by a lot now at this margin. So it's fine. It's a real thing. But I started to coach myself in August and get coaching around what if I don't hit my revenue that I thought I would? And what does that mean about me? And that's when I really got that message that there will be a time in your business where you make less in a year, and it could be a lot less. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars less. It could be a few $1,000s less. And it has zero meaning. It's just a number. So it's like whatever you make it mean is what it's going to mean. And I think as soon as I quit focusing on not hitting it, it allowed me to be creative and make more offers. That's when we came up with the legal bundle, which I haven't even made any money off of yet. And I made a big investment into. And that's when I started to work with Mish and hire her and like pay for her services so she could build out the website training. So I made a lot of investments in my business to make it better, at the time when I was like behind in quotation marks in revenue. So
cool. So cool. There's like a gazillion things there I want to like grab onto and talk about.
yeah.
Some of the creative things, I'm going to back up first and say what we're not saying, like what we kind of start taking for granted, right? Once we have a business that's up and running, we're almost taking for granted, oh, I'm going to continue foundations, right? I'm going to run another couple rounds of the mastermind. Like those weren't even like they were part of your revenue goal, but it was kind of like, I'm doing this. Like these programs are working and now I'm tweaking them, right?
Yeah.
And so for thinking about our MFR therapists in the program, and when you're first starting out, it's like, how am I going to get fully booked? And all your energy is focused on getting fully booked. And then you get too fully booked and it just becomes the norm. And then you're tweaking all these other things and you don't even talk about being fully booked anymore. You're talking about how do you take time off or how do you do a second offer or whatever it is. And so it's just interesting. It's like what we talk about and reflect on and the stuff that's just kind of like behind the scenes now because it's just the norm.
Yeah. I think one thing too I should bring up is 2024 saw us hit our first 1 year anniversary of foundations. So we had our first set of students fully go through the program for a
Yeah.
year. And
Yeah.
we did our first renewal of that into the program. And we had a really high renewal rate. We've now gone through, gosh, two big renewals where we've had large majorities of the people stay in the program, which I think is awesome. The other thing we did is right away in April, I went through a team change. We went through a systems change where we moved everything over to Kajabi and we really made sure that things were easier for me to run on my own if I ever needed to do so, which ended up being the case later on in the year. So those systems changes, and not to make it easier for me necessarily, like that was one of the perks, but to make it easier for the client to have the interactions with the things and the assets that are available to them. And we are never going to be perfect at this. Like it's going to annoy some people when we make changes. Some people don't like change, but also it's like the greater good of how does this serve people long term, which I'm really glad we moved back to Kajabi. And then we tweaked and added things like Airtable so we can do all of this tracking. And we continue to add more and more calls. So like we added the 10K call, we added the pop-up calls, we've added the monthly email that's like a newsletter to everybody. So we've really given more and more to the program instead of taking things away, which I think like right now in the state of the world, like things are becoming like less and less and tighter and tighter. And I feel like we've been giving more and more and really being able to find ways to connect with all of the students in the program so that we can see who is struggling, who is not struggling, like why are they not struggling, and how do we get to the people that are struggling and acknowledge that we see that and surround them with whatever we can to ensure that everybody crosses the finish line. And the finish line to me is that you have a business that's open and is getting fully booked, that also becomes fully booked so that you are on track for that six-figure business if that's what you're setting yourself up for. So I think just really being able to stay in touch with the people at the beginning and the people that are like hitting multiple six figures. Like that's a large range of mindset and freak out and drama. And it's different at all of the levels and yet also like much the same.
Yeah. I love that so much. I mean, literally in 1 week, we can coach somebody who is working full time in a job and, sneaking in, doing a couple treatments like one night a week, right? Like Wednesday night, they've got 3 hours and they sneak in two treatments. Like we're starting with them and all the way up to somebody who's fully booked 3 months out, bringing in over 100K, thinking about hiring somebody, thinking about
Mhm.
expanding their space, like
Yeah.
in the same coaching call, we can be
Yeah.
coaching both ends. So yeah, I love it so
Mhm.
much. And I'll add one more call that you didn't mention, but we've started doing a regular onboarding call. So when folks join, like we really get some small group time to make sure everybody feels comfortable in the program and understands all the resources because it can
Yeah.
be overwhelming at first when they first come in because it's like, oh my gosh, the bounty, the abundance that's in this
Yeah. It's like
program.
going to college and you're like, you don't know where to eat. You don't know where, like, where's the library? Where's,
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah,
are all the resources? Yeah.
yeah. I love it. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yes.
Okay, next question. What are you most proud of from this year?
Gosh, hopefully this doesn't make me cry, but maybe it will. I think I'm most proud of not giving up. And like every time something really difficult happened, like, I mean, there's a lot of difficult things that happen, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and like team changes. Instead of getting upset and like disconnecting from my business or myself, I doubled down. And every time I've doubled down in my business, so many good things have been born out of that. So every time I've had a team change, the systems have gotten better. Every time I've been disappointed in a launch, my messaging has gotten better, or like maybe it's gotten worse before it's gotten better, but I haven't ever quit. There's been times where I'm just like, I hate everybody and I'm quitting, like that's and I don't mean any of my students. I just mean like just everyone. But I don't stay stuck in that for long. And I think I have a lot of resources to help me. And I'm always leaning into those resources and really trying to solve for whatever the problem is that is creating that stressful experience. I think injuring my back and not knowing for so long, mostly because I was just like too stubborn to go to the doctor. I look back at myself like a year ago, I'm just like, what was I thinking? I just didn't know what I didn't know. And to go through that was very, very difficult and just very physically painful and like emotionally draining. I spent so much time just like laying down, but then I would feel so good on a coaching call.
Mm.
Like I could 100% know that while I got myself out of bed and rallied and put makeup on and came to those calls, like I was going to feel really good for that hour because I love what I do so much. So I'm so glad that I didn't have to quit, that I didn't have to take extended periods of time off. I took off what I needed to take off to take care of myself. And I was so thankful that I had a coach like you that could just step in and everybody so well that it's like no one probably even noticed that I wasn't there. So it's nice that I could do that. Yeah, I think I'm most proud of like not quitting because it was like it's been a hell of a year. A hell of a year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's such a good example for everyone, right? That success really comes at just not giving up, at
Mhm.
at just continuing to go, no matter how many times things don't seem to work, like we just stay in it, it will work out. And I see this so much with folks who are starting their business and they do a big marketing push, whatever that looks like to them, and they're disappointed that it doesn't instantly create a fully booked scenario for them.
Yeah.
And it's like we're planting those seeds and we're just doing the work and we just stick with it and it
Yeah.
will work out. And we see that with everyone who's, a 10K a month coach or has reached their 100K mark.
Mhm.
They have just stuck with it. They are not unicorns. They are
Yeah.
not like magically gifted in some way. They didn't strike gold. Like it wasn't like
Wasn't
they
just
just
luck.
it wasn't luck and it
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh, they figured out that silver bullet solution to do it. No,
Yeah.
they just tried a ton of different things and they just kept trying and they learned from what didn't work and then they
Mhm.
tried something new and then they learned and they tried to like they just
Yeah.
kept going. And we talk often in the group, right, about comparing and despairing. Like
Yeah.
when you look at someone who's further along in their business, who seems more well established, it's so easy to just focus on their success and where they're at and not know all the details, all the dark days when they didn't feel like it was working
Mhm.
and all the work that they put in and all the things that they tried. So I love you being just that example of I just kept going. It
Mhm.
was messy at times and I just kept
Yeah.
going.
It's messy. And the other thing too is I really opened myself up to rejection this year. Like
Mm,
even
so good.
asking people like why they didn't rejoin, asking people, that haven't been participating, why they're not, and, getting really direct feedback. Like
Yeah.
sometimes people being like, the reason I'm not here is because I don't like you, Being like,
Yes.
okay, but like it's helpful actually to hear that and to be able to say, like, guess what? Like you don't have to, but please don't risk not learning something while you're here because you think you should like me. Like it's not part of the deal. And I'm going to coach you or anyone the same way, even knowing that information. Like I'm going to try harder because I don't need you to like me, but I want you to succeed. And it doesn't do any of us any good to not succeed in this program. And I think I also had some of my worst fears come to life this year. Like I got some pushback and some emails, people like really misunderstanding what I do and telling me that I shouldn't be doing this. And really checking into myself to be like, making MFR mainstream and helping MFR therapists to never under earn and never burn out, like really is my mission. And I will not stop. And I'm not doing anything wrong. I think it's like really being clear in what my boundaries are and what I am and am not doing, and really allowing people to be wrong about me
Mm.
and not focusing on trying to over explain has been that's been a thing this year.
So huge.
Yeah.
Rejection resilience or rejection tolerance
Hmm.
is such a muscle to build, isn't it?
And
It's
I'm
so
not telling
powerful.
anyone to do anything that I'm not willing to do. And I
Yeah,
think that's also like I'm constantly practicing what I preach and exposing myself to rejection all the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
good.
Let's do it.
Let's feel horrible. Let's do it
Let's all
together.
do it together. Sign me up.
Oh, yeah. I'm curious what you feel stronger in or more capable of now than you did at the beginning of the year? Is there a skill set or is there a yeah, is there just part of your work that you feel stronger in?
Yeah. I think I'm way less concerned or scared of like people joining the program and me not knowing how to help them. I feel
Mm,
like I can really coach on anything anyone brings me, and it's just not a problem. Like I don't even worry about it anymore. I used to think people like if they had a question about like why I think this was like so good, and I think this happened in like 20, maybe it was in 2023. Someone on Raise Your Rate Bootcamp asked me, like, why can unexperienced therapists charge more than me? I'm an expert. And I'm like, the only
yeah,
reason they can't. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in so much trouble. And like, I suck. And I feel like all these thoughts are like going through my brain. But the answer I gave, because I got that question, really solidified that it has nothing to do with your skill level and everything to do with your business decisions. And if you have a coach and you put yourself in the position to charge what you want to charge and what you need to charge to be able to pay yourself, you will become an expert eventually, like in your hands on skills, because you will be fully booked and because you'll be able to afford to take more seminars versus paying for all these seminars and all these out of pocket costs before you decide you're worthy enough to charge what you need to charge to stay in business. So it's like building your business from the ground up instead of building your skill level up to the ceiling and then starting over to recoup the cost of that.
hmm
Does that make sense? So when that
yeah,
question was asked, I literally like thought I was going to die, but it helped me to solidify like, no, actually like this is what I believe, or I wouldn't be teaching it.
yeah,
Like I'm not just like, hey, you guys just pick any rate and throw it at the wall and you can charge $700 an hour if you want. Like, I mean, you can totally do whatever you want, but I'm going to tell you actually what works and like knowing which facts to really base that on.
yeah,
And it works every single time,
yeah.
even people in tiny towns.
So good.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. All right, I want to move on to 2025.
Okay.
But before we do, is there anything more you want to say about 2024 and what it was like to run your business or who you became, how you changed in this year?
One other thing I didn't say was my goal originally for 2024 was to hit $1 million in the year. And going into that, knowing all of the circumstances,
Hmm.
I had to make it okay for it to be $1 million overall. Right. And then in my brain, I was like, yeah, you have to hit $1 million overall before you can hit it in a year anyway. Right. Like that's just how the math works. And being okay with redefining the goal and like being repeating what I made the year before was like in nowhere near a fail. And also when we're dealing in numbers these big, like $420,000 is so much money. And when I made $100,000 my first year of coaching, I felt so successful and
Mm,
so rich, personally and professionally, not just financially. And I just kept remembering the feeling that I had at $100,000 and being like, it's actually not the amount of money that you make that creates that feeling. It's the thought you have about the goal that you have and about your ability to hit it. So really remembering I was in charge of how I felt about any outcome. And it doesn't, you don't have to be positive in order for it to be more valuable. I definitely like did have moments where I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm going to have to change my niche. Like, I'm never going to have enough leads because I've been coached to for that, right? Like every coach I've had has been like, your niche is too small. You're going to run out of leads. There's not enough MFR therapists for you to make millions of dollars a year. And I'm like, I guess I don't have to make $1 million every year to be successful. And like, I still want to try to do that. And that'll definitely be a goal for this year. But I'm not going to do it at the expense of what I have built. And I'm not going to do it at the expense of my health. And I'm not going to do it at the expense of the results that my clients are going to get.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I want everybody to take that away, that we are in charge of our definition of success for ourselves. And like, we really get to decide if we're being successful or what success means. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk 2025. The first question I want to ask you is, how will you be different at the end of 2025?
Ooh, good question. Well, I'm hoping that I'm not even going to hope, like this is going to be a goal.
Okay.
I want to be even more like unbothered by how many people sign up for my program, how many people show up to a call, how many people come to my webinars. I want to be as neutral as possible about all of those things, but not to the deficit where I don't try or I'm not giving it my all, right? I want to try extremely hard and to be putting my all into all of these things, a little less attached to the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one aspect. And then I think that that's going to lead into me having my most creative year yet. And I have created a lot of stuff. So whenever I can stay in creativity mode and push myself and stay out of my comfort zone, I create so much better. So I want to go to more seminars this year and interact with more people live. I'm putting on a live event. Probably, I'm not sure if I'll be at the live event when this episode airs or not, but for the first time in person with my mastermind. And that is like so uncomfortable for me to be doing this. There's something about being behind the Zoom screen that's like a really sweet spot for me. And I don't know if it's just because that's just what I know, but I think anytime I can push the boundaries of comfort into discomfort, it's making me better. So lots of areas for discomfort. So by the end of 2025, maybe I'm planning another live event. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing things like maybe I've gone to multiple seminars. And that's another thing. Like I'm kind of what do you call that? Like I'm not like super social. So, and I'm kind of introverted. I'm like the most extroverted introvert you might ever meet. So so I'm a little awkward at seminars or whatever. And I think I would like for 2025 to bring me a little more peace around my idiosyncrasies, around my sensory issues, around my beliefs around where I fit in the MFR community as a non-practicing member now, but as a coach that needs and wants to be very connected to what people are going through still. And that's going to require that I do things that are uncomfortable. So you'll see me showing up, say hi to me, like, let's have lunch, like treat me as a normal person in the class.
Okay. That's Heather's request to everyone.
Yes.
When you see her at a seminar, treat her as a normal person.
Treat me as a normal person. I'll probably only talk business, but that's just like all I know what to talk about now.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But I am there to like really learn like what are the current struggles, like what is happening, because I'm not running an MFR business anymore, right? But I need to stay in the thick of it. I want to be in the thick of what the struggles are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to hear what everybody's struggling with. I love that.
Yeah. So, I don't want to like abandon my money goal either, like of hitting $1 million in a year. I just don't, at this time, I don't know the path to that, right? I know it's 333 people joining the program. So I could say my goal for this year is to enroll 333 people. And the other reason why that number is really kind of special is it has a lot of meaning in our community too. So anyway, I'm going to put that out there. I know it's inevitable that I will have coached 330 people at some point. So we'll just put it out there.
Okay.
Okay.
Sending it out into the universe there. Any other business goals? Maybe they're not revenue related, but
Mhm.
for 2025?
I do have some team goals. Like I would like to be a better manager of people. I would like to establish like my online business manager role in a more I'd like to just get even more clear on the roles that people are playing in my business and like is everybody fulfilling the role and like creating the best value, and it's more like on that operations side of my business that's actually supporting me and making me feel supported, right? And so that I can like really show up to coach and I'm not spending my time like uploading emails or uploading videos and doing a lot of the back end, like the more, which I'm fine doing that stuff, but it is distracting. And sometimes it like gets a little bit overwhelming depending on what else we have going on. Yeah.
Well, and your zone of genius really is coaching. I mean, now being someone who has literally watched and listened to hundreds, if not thousands of hours of your coaching,
I don't know if I
I
should
can
apologize or tell you you're
I
welcome.
can honestly say your zone of genius is coaching and creating materials that are helping MFR therapists to grow their businesses, addressing the issues and concerns that come up for them, helping them really expand, step out of their comfort zone, try new things. And
Mhm.
so the whole community benefits when you are focused on that work instead of uploading emails or posting social media posts. So,
Exactly. Yeah. But it's all like stuff that has to be done. And I will, like, if I don't have someone to do that for me, like, you better bet your bottom dollar that I have my sleeves up and I am doing it all. And since November of this year, like, every single email you've gotten, like, has personally been sent by me, written, edited, loaded and sent by me, whether you like it or not.
yeah.
And like even on the back end of like the weekly reminders, like those all have to be manually done with the system that we have now, which I'm looking to change. And it was easy when I didn't have to do it. But then all of a sudden, like they're in the middle of the last launch, like I had decided to take control over that. And one thing I like about that is every time I do that and I like really get in like the nitty gritty of my business, like I get better and I feel really connected to the clients, to the audience, because I am making all these touch points. It's just, I just can't be doing that at all times and maintain my energy level without more systems or maybe just like a little bit of help. So it was one thing to do it as like a little bit of a sprint and now it's becoming a marathon, and it'll be something that is fixed soon. And I've had so much help getting automations. Like together, you and I have implemented just like our ability to see into our client profiles and like everything that we have going on. We have perfected that and made that so much better because of this, which is I'm so thankful for.
hmm
And I don't think I
hmm
wouldn't have had the budget and I wouldn't have had the time and I wouldn't have been as dug in as deep had these other circumstances not happened. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important too to reflect and say that at the beginning of your business, you were doing all of it. Like
Hmm.
you learned how to do it, which then made it easier for you to hire different people at different times to do some of this back end work. So when folks are thinking about, marketing for their MFR practice or something, we are not recommending, oh, go find somebody to go market for you,
Yeah.
right? Learn how to do it yourself. Get into
Yeah.
it. Understand all the ins and outs of it. And then once you're really running and it's fully established, like if you want to delegate some of that, great. But you don't skip the step of learning how to do it yourself.
Yeah. And you really do need to know your own messaging. You really do need to know that in order to delegate it to somebody else. Otherwise, it's going to be their messaging and it will be just enough off that it won't resonate with who you're trying to talk to. So
Yeah.
I found that with like at one point this year too, this is like another thing, like what I would do differently next time is I hired someone to write emails for me and it just was off. Like it was just off. Like every email that would go out, I would read it and like it was good enough because it was done, but like I would read it and I would like, ugh. I just kind of feel a little like
A little
yucky about
cringy.
it.
Hmm.
Yeah. And but I was busy. So it was like, it's good enough, And I think not having that like good enough attitude, more like have really precise messaging that I work on myself and just taking the time to always be in control of that until I have such a big body of work that there's no question what my messaging is or what my tone of voice is. But until then, like I really need to be doing those myself. Now my assistant can take an email and take chunks of that and repurpose that into social media, but can't do it from scratch.
So, how will you know in 2025 that you are on the right track? What will be the markers for you that things are going well, that you like how things are going?
Good question. I don't know if I have a really cut or dry answer because it would be more of the like, because I keep showing up and people keep coming to the calls and people keep enrolling. I think we're always looking at enrollment numbers. And right now, our goal is to always be at 100 members in foundations. And we're for the first time in like a year, because of various reasons, but we're down to like 89 members right now. So that's not a problem. Like we're 11 away from the goal. That's actually freaking
Hmm.
amazing. But I think we just look at those, like that will be one factual thing that I look at. And then when we're not hitting that, like why are we not hitting it? And how do we hit it? I guess would always be the question. And that's always our question is like, how do we reach more people? How do we get the messaging out? Because there's really only a little bit of MFR therapists that even know about me at this point. And so, how do I get bigger? How do I get louder? Some of that's going to be like I'm releasing the MFR Coaches Therapists Network in 2025. And I think that will be helpful because people are going to want to be on that. And the only way they can be on that is if they've been in coaching. It's going to really establish a whole nother way to refer clients and to be able to refer at the level of like, this therapist has been through coaching. So you kind of know how they do their business. You can comfortably refer that way. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a measure. The numbers that we have in foundations, the numbers of people that are hitting the 200K mark in the mastermind. So there's lots of ways to measure the success of the programs and the success of the business. And so with that, the only way I can make more money is if I continually help other people have a fully booked business or scale their business. So it's my hitting my financial goals is completely tied to how many other people are hitting their financial goals.
Cool. Now, you often will talk about when a therapist might be feeling burnt out, or whether they're dealing with a health issue or they're dealing with family issues, right? You often will say, you're the asset. Like you're the biggest asset in your business. You have to take care of the asset in
Mm-hmm.
order to have your business succeed, right? So, how will you know if you're taking good care of your asset this year?
Well, I think I've always made myself a top priority as an asset. And so, like, you might not see this behind the scenes, but I'm literally going to so many appointments during the week to keep myself in top condition, whether that's to my trainer, to my physical therapist to work like micro muscles while I'm exercising to make sure my back is protected, to getting MFR treatments. I've also been really struggling with migraines and vision problems this year. So making sure that I'm taking breaks from the computer, wearing my special glasses, making sure I'm doing my eye exercises or going to vision therapy if things start to kind of ramp up. So that's how I'll know. Like I have no plans to titrate down any of that. And I have lots of plans to actually work out more and get stronger and like start to add more things in and add in even more body work. So That's what I do. And I recommend that everybody that is an MFR therapist is getting their own paid MFR therapy care. And they're not just going to seminars for care. Like, never go to a seminar for treatment. Always pay for your own treatment outside of a seminar, and make sure you're getting at least one treatment a month, if not weekly. It's really important to be a product of your product. Really important. And the same for me, like, I'm a coach and I'm a product of my product. I get life coaching with a private coach every week, and I'm also in group coaching programs. So I have a managed mind so that I can help you manage your mind. And if I didn't, I don't think I could coach at the level that I coach at.
Absolutely. Yeah. So good. I love that recipe. Any other thoughts about 2025 that you want to share?
Well, it's so like funny, I think, to talk about how a year is going to go before you have any knowledge of like what is the world even going to be like going into
Yeah.
2025?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening in 2025? Like, I'm also sending my second son to college, and I'm preparing for that now, right? It's not
Yeah.
going to happen till August. We don't even know where he's going. But I think I underestimated how sad I was going to be when my first son left, and then also underestimated like how quickly I would be able to get through that once he left. So now that I've done it one time, I kind of can prepare myself, but I have a different relationship with my second child, and like, we have a different dynamic, and it's going to hit me differently. Same with when my daughter leaves, like, it's going to just hit me in a different way that I can't fully prepare for ahead of time. So I am making space for that in my calendar. I am planning things around that. And instead of dreading it like I did with my first son, I am looking forward to it. And I'm really trying to spend time now and for the first 6 months of 2025 doing the things that we won't be able to do when he leaves, right? And like really enjoying the time that we have instead of dreading the time that we're not going to have, and trying to keep it in that perspective. So,
What I pull out of that too is like you looking ahead at the year and being able to make some decisions about when you're going to take time off, when you're, not going to be ramping things up,
mhm,
right? Like you're not going to do a launch, you're not going to do some big webinar the week that he's
yeah,
leaving for
nope,
college or the week after he's left for college, right?
yeah.
And we can all do that. We can all take a little time to reflect on what is the year and what makes sense to do when.
I think sometimes people look at making these decisions ahead of time as like really rigid and controlling. And I think it creates so much more flexibility, because if you've got the time marked off, just anticipating that, hey, I'm not going to want to work during this time, or I want to be fully dedicated to XYZ, you get the opportunity to be fully dedicated. Now, if you get there and you don't need to be fully dedicated, or you decide you want to do something else, then you also have that flexibility to do something else in that time. And if that is seeing more patients, then go ahead and do that. It does not limit you, though, to plan your entire year. And it is not rigid. It actually creates so much flexibility, just like creating policies creates a lot of flexibility too. So I just encourage anyone listening to this, if you're like, geez, Heather sounds anal and like very rigid. It's like, I'm actually not. And sometimes I have to remind myself like of all the things that I need to put on my calendar that I forget to put on there. But when it's on there, it affords me the opportunity to do the thing that I intended to do that creates the result that I want to have ultimately. And it just gives me so much more freedom, because then I'm not trying to scramble to do the thing that I wanted to do. So it's helpful. And I highly recommend all of you get your calendars out, plan all your time off for the year, plan all of the seminars you're going to go to, get it marked off on your calendar now. You'll be glad you did.
You will be glad you did.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought it would be really fun to end this podcast by reading some of our client wins.
Hmm.
It's something that everybody in the Foundations program is invited to do, to at any point submit a win that they're celebrating, and they give us permission to share them. So, do you want to pick one to share, and then I'll share one as well?
Sure. Let me just get to the wins. All right, so this one says, I got my barf jar ready and I walked the streets of Oakland to engage with the neighbors. I spoke with a chiropractor, an LGBTQ plus community center, a choir office, and a PT clinic. I handed out cards, talked the talk, and arranged a trade with the chiropractor. This felt huge, even though it didn't yield anything but free treatment. Each time I talk about MFR to people, I get stronger and braver. And that's just like it's so important to celebrate a win like that. They have no idea what's going to come out of that, right?
So good. So good. Here's another one. After missing an entire week from being sick, I sold 6 packages and collected $5,825 for the week. My personal best week since opening my business. Woohoo!
That's amazing. Okay, this one says, I was very clear about treatment plans for every client I saw this week, which resulted in me selling more MFR. I identified a thought that I'd been having for many years that has kept me from actively moving towards being successful in many things, but mostly in my MFR business. I will be doing a thought download on it after I submit this form. That's awesome.
So cool. Here's another one. My collaboration with a local fitness gym was a success. My presentation went really well. I felt much more comfortable, and at the end, 2 participants scheduled evaluation sessions. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, this is a fun one. In 1 year, I was able to pay off the home loan I took out to add a bathroom to my office space. That was $10,000. That's so good. And I think that person that shared that also had her first $100,000 year this year.
Here's one. There is great power in saying yes. I've had 3 new clients by just saying yes. Yes, I can come to you. Yes, I can treat that area. Yes, I treat children. Feeling so good. I love that.
I love that. This person celebrated a win. I made $10,000 for the first time in October. So good.
I feel like we've had a lot of folks recently get their own spaces, which is super
Mhm.
fun. So here's one. I have a fully executed lease as of yesterday. I'm becoming a small business owner officially. Woohoo!
That's so exciting. Okay, this one is fun. 1 year ago this week, I quit my job with benefits to focus on my MFR business, fearful and uncertain. But with coaching and everyone in the container, I did it and I have been more successful than I imagined. I can't wait to see what another year will bring. This one says, I'm now officially on my own. Online booking is like a little gift as it notifies me at just the right time. I'm excited that I have 5 people now following me from my last place of employment. I'm humbled and honored.
We love celebrating when folks turn on online booking because
Yes.
it's just so key to folks being able to book with you whenever is convenient for them to be
Mhm.
looking at their schedule, whether it's midnight or, you know, 6 in the morning. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Here's one. I've changed my business name. It's a win because I'm not just talking about it, I'm doing it. I have become a much more action-oriented person with Heather's help. By doing it faster, I don't leave doubt time to get a foothold. I'm done by the time my goofy brain says, are you sure? I love that.
That's awesome. Okay, this one is great. I made the most money in one day that I have in my entire life of 49 years. And I know this is just the beginning. Thank you, Heather and Meg. I could not have done it without you both in my corner.
Oh, that makes
Yeah,
me so happy.
I know.
Here's one. I have been on the fence about my rate for a long time, and now I feel confident in it and love it. I love my package price. I know my numbers at Fully Booked will reflect what I need and more. I feel confident in MFR's worth and my worth as a practitioner at this rate.
I love it. There's so many. We could go on and on. I think we have
So
like
many.
hundreds of celebrations. It's hard to showcase them all, but I think for everyone, it's really important. You can do this in your own business is ask people to give you a review or when they tell you something, believe it and write it down or ask them to email you a summary of what they told you and store everything together. So when you get a client that doesn't have a good result, or when somebody complains, or when you're just feeling like nothing is working, you can go back and you can read this body of work of people that you have helped to just reestablish and re-solidify that everything is working and everything is okay. And you do, in fact, do a good job. I think you guys have no idea how often I read these in the middle of the night. If I'm having anxiety, if I'm worried that something isn't going right, I read through all of this because this actually is the majority of what goes on in the program. And you'll always hear like the negative things the loudest if you give that the most attention. So when you redirect your brain to the things that are working and the reviews and the positivity, that's what your brain is going to focus on. And it will drown out and kind of fade away that voice in your head that's like, oh, but this person said da 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 da. So obviously it's not working. Yeah. All those things. I
Yeah,
have a very human brain. It's very naughty.
absolutely. Yeah. No, we have to flood it with
Yeah.
evidence of all the positive too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
good. So good. Thank you, Heather, for sharing so much of what your 2024 year was and what you're envisioning for 2025. I think it's so fun to peek behind the curtain and see what's going on in your brain for everyone.
Yeah. Thank
I
you.
get an insider scoop a lot more often, but I know
Yes.
everybody likes to get a little more insider knowledge. And I think there's just so many parallels between how you've run your business and how folks can choose to run theirs as well. And, we're all humans trying to do this.
Yeah. And business is hard. I mean, and there's aspects of it that are just always going to feel a little bit hard. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it or that you can't do it or that it's going to be exhausting. It's just really important to surround yourself and be in rooms with people that are doing big things like you are. So you normalize it and you normalize everything that you're going through, and you can have a safe space to talk about these things. And it's not weird. You're not a weirdo just because it's not going perfect. So, yeah. So I appreciate everybody that listens to this podcast. I appreciate you for taking time to do this interview with me. And, I was just kind of reminiscing on the end of the year podcast about having over 220 episodes out there and starting this show in 2021, like really thinking like, who's even going to listen to this? And it turns out that the majority of people that come to coaching listen to this podcast. So I'm glad I do it, and it's worth it. It's worth it.
It's awesome. Yeah. So cool.
Thanks so much. All right, everybody, that is a wrap for today. Thanks for listening to us and being a person that comes to this podcast over and over again. If you have found value in this, I would love for you to rate and review the show. You can do that on iTunes or basically on any of the shows that you listen to. If it's Spotify or whatever, there's a way to rate and review the show. I would really appreciate that. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, you know what, now is the time. I want to jump in. I want to join Foundations. I want to be part of the 333 people that get Heather to her goal in 2025. Then you would want to go to www.themfrcoach.com/foundation and join today. We'd love to have you. All right. I'll see you on another episode of the MFR Coaches podcast next week. Bye for now. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a minute and rate and review the podcast. I appreciate it. For more information, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The MFR Coach. And check out my website, www.themfrcoach.com, for more information. If you are currently not working 20 hours or less and making six figures in your MFR business, I want to help you change that. Make sure you tune into the show and get on my email list so you never miss out on important trainings and information. To be the first to find out when we are enrolling next for my 12-month Business Foundations coaching program, get on that email list at www.themfrcoach.com/join. Inside this program, you'll learn how to raise your rate, overcome objections, and sell MFR. You'll become the MFR therapist that never under-earns and never burns out. It's up to us to make MFR mainstream, and it starts with you and your successful MFR practice. See you next week.